Hello, welcome to Tarot for Our Times. Sarah, medium on the go. And just as I ended the video that was published the morning of the 18th, I said I was going to deal with the kind of messed up religious spirituality aspect of Maga. And since we have been doing this, I'm not the only reader on the internet that's been doing this, but a lot of us have been talking about the toxicity and the weaponization of religion. A lot of it compares to the evangelical movement in the States today, does compare pretty much with with that of Nazi Germany. So I wanted to that area I can really get through pretty quickly. And here again we have the moon reversed with the very dark side of conscious and subconscious that would use religion and spirituality to manipulate and to actually make excuses for doing some pretty awful things. So I don't have to dwell too much on the Christianity part of it because it's pretty obvious. The comparisons are getting people whipped up in a religious fervor, having this false narrative of what a family is supposed to be like, which is probably like the old cover of the Saturday Evening Post, and the Germans did that too. And in fact, in the name of religion, had women who were working to get back in the house and were compensated, and that they were to become baby machines. So that explains why some of the more fundamental forms of Christianity, not only the Catholics, look down on abortion. Now, the Third Reich was very hypocritical about it. Abortion was banned for those of the pure Aryan race, while the undesirables like Jews and other people were about required to get abortions at a certain point. So we've heard so much about that, and in modern times, as far as the Christianity goes, why a lot of white women got really, really sucked into that whole narrative, and it's exemplified by Erica Kirk, who she actually does look like out of central casting for an Aryan, has told women to stay at home, have babies, and even some of, even now what is coming out is encouraging teenagers to get pregnant. So, and then, but she herself has had a career and is out all over the country doing her late husband's work. So, that sort of thing. So there is that very strong connection. But what I want to get into a little bit more is about the more of our end of the pool, which is the alternative spiritual practices. And I will have to say that what went on in Europe at the end of World War I and carried through to the end of the war, well, beyond that with the neo-Nazis, is the dark side of the world in which we live. But that has also been, with some of these kind of fake Christian Bible thumping types, have been the belief they spread is that we're all like that. So I want to make it really clear that anything that comes within the realm of spirituality does have the shadow side, and in Christianity, it can be the Spanish Inquisition, the Crusades, a whole lot of things. With the Muslims, it can be 9/11. Then there's the whole Israel thing. So there's a lot going on with the different religions. So I first want to give a little bit of a background. So we have here but before I do that, before I forget, I'll pull the secondary card for this reading. So here we go. Oh, we've got the Queen of Wands. Very interesting, because I think what this is telling me is that I'm seeing this is the problem. This could possibly be the solution, which is, I think, what I might be doing a reading about, is a strong woman leader who is a genuinely spiritual person, but it doesn't have time to be preaching to other people. So I want to give a background about the what we call New Age today. They would have called occultism back in the day. So I've been doing some digging and reading about this for quite a while now, and I want to go in the background a little bit, try to make this as brief as possible, with the fascist version of spirituality that I put in quotes. After in 1918, after World War I, when Germany lost and was humiliated at Versailles, this society got formed called the Thule Society, and it's ancient mysticism, has a lot of Nordic probably stuff, probably some Scandinavian pagan thrown in, and it's basically about a land up north, maybe near Greenland and in that area. Interesting how that parallel comes, where there was a pure race of white warriors, gods, this sort of thing, and that those of pure German lineage are directly descended from that. So I did have to take some notes. So what happened was, around 1919, they formed the German Workers' Party, which was called Thule, and there was a young paper hanger from Austria, a veteran of that war by the name of Adolf Hitler, attended meetings and developed took their philosophy and turned it into National Socialism. But here's where the hypocrisy comes in. The Abrahamic religions don't have a monopoly on hypocrisy, is that he knew that he did have to kind of keep that whole Christian thing with the children, church, and the kitchen philosophy going. So he distanced himself from the Thule Society while he took all of their philosophy. And it included the astrology and the paranormal. Now, they did develop a number of false prophecies, taking things like Nostradamus, and they didn't really have to do much to change it around to benefit them. What they did was that, it was written, I don't know if it was written in ancient German or, it was, in an older language. So it's very easy to misinterpret when you go from an ancient language to a modern language or another language. I've studied languages enough to know that that can be used for manipulation. So they did that pretty much to, setting out these false prophecies to really, undermine the Allies, the British, the French, Americans eventually. And so in the midst of this, there was Hermann Hesse, who decided that, when Germany was about ready to invade Russia, he decided he was going to fly to England and convince them to surrender so that the Germans wouldn't have to fight the war on two fronts. But he crashed in Scotland, was taken in, he was arrested, and he spent the rest of his life in jail until he unalived himself, like around 1987, something like that. But Hitler was pissed off at that. So, what he did was that he decided that psychics, spiritualists, mediums, astrologers that didn't fit into their game plan would be arrested. So there was a big purge, and they were shunted off to concentration camp. And I do have to stress to spiritual workers who think that none of the politics or none of this has anything to do with their lives, do need to look a little bit at that history, because some of them were sent to like Dachau and that sort of thing and died. But there was one particular astrologer who gave readings to some of the guards, and he was very, very accurate. So they yanked him out of the concentration camp and sent him to be Hitler's astrologer. I think he was still advised to not go into Russia, but he did. But way back, the Napoleon's astrologer told him the same thing. He did, and he lived to regret it. Okay, so then we have Heinrich Himmler, who I guess he turned the elite force of the SS into these occult gods, because they were like the elite and supposedly pure Aryan, directly descended from the land of the Thule. So he redid this big castle built by people in the camps, many of whom died in the making of this. So he fashioned it after King Arthur of the Round Table, and that's where they did rituals. They signed their name in blood, took oaths and all this kind of thing. And let's see. And then they developed a fake science about racial purity, misinterpreting the teachings of Nostradamus and of Madame Blavatsky, who was a 19th century Ukrainian mystic. They completely warped her stuff. So at any rate, and they were also into getting abstract artifacts, which is part of the plundering of occupied museums and churches. And one was the spear that was allegedly poked into Christ on his way up to the crucifixion. And the very interesting thing, though, was when the war was turning the other way. This is very important to note. In 1945, when the whole thing was going to shit, Himmler and his associates, and there were a whole bunch of them into this, they tried doing stuff like pendulums, dowsing, astrology, but none of it worked. None of it worked. This is important to note, that when you mess with spirituality and try to use it for negative things, the universe goes, I don't think so. So, a lot of the, and Himmler ordered the castle destroyed, but it couldn't be destroyed. And he also unalived himself. Boom! When he got captured, ma'am, he chomped down on that pill, and he was bye-bye. So they did have that black sun, which is a thing made up of swastikas, and I'm a lot of times when I do social media stuff, I'm really, because I got punished on Facebook, even though it was not pro-Nazi or anything. You have to be careful, because when you post these thumbnails on Facebook, they do look for stuff like that, and it could be hit or miss and you might get land. So I'm careful to not do that, to land in Facebook jail. But it is a black sun made of the, the various arms of the swastika. And now that has been used for the neo-Nazi groups and the white supremacists. And I would say, I'm going to do this, I can't say for sure, but I would say I would start looking very carefully at some of those tattoos that Pete Kegseth has. Because I've heard they're white supremacist stuff, but I would say that a lot of them probably go back to this, which is really the kind of the hook into this. And we'll say this, that I feel that QAnon is an outgrowth of this very dark thing. I would call them more of the, the negative, the dark side of the occult, rather than, New Age stuff. But, and the thing is that they're similar in that they go into conspiracy theories and all this. Also, they're big projectors, because that they were saying about Hillary and pizza parlors and child trafficking. It turns out that their boys in Maga were the ones doing that. This is pretty much what we're dealing with. And the interesting thing is, in studying this a little bit more, is that the Nazis started to blend even though it would not, all of this occult stuff was really done in secret. But, and I think probably Himmler and his boys had a part in this, they managed to blend it in with the their version of Christianity too. As well as, you've got the QAnon stuff, and then you've got the right-wing evangelistic stuff. And the whole thing is that it's hard to know where one begins and one ends. So this is what we have to deal with it. So I think that it's really important to know this. And I was going to put links, but I would say, if you look at stuff like the History Channel, you want to learn more about this. There's some incredibly long videos. I would say it would be better for you to watch it on video than to read about it, because then you get the visuals about what these people were doing. And it was their excuse for doing those atrocious, experiments at Auschwitz and all this sort of thing. And what all of this has in common is that it is used to frighten and manipulate people. That is really the purpose. So I want to see very quickly, how do we, and I won't make this a super long read, it's about being aware with it and dealing with it on all this sort of thing. And, from all the people starting 6 years ago, and we, nothing like a pandemic. Also, you have to remember too, which is very important, that is a big, big parallel, is that the QAnon stuff really started to blossom. I blocked so many people from our community that went QAnon at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So with boys and girls, what happened in 1918 at the end of World War I? There was a big pandemic. So there's something about that energy that makes these groups flourish. And it probably misleads people that should know better, but then a year or two later they come to their senses. And there have been a number of those in my community, I do have to say, that really got taken in. So I just want to do a quick read, since, it took me a while to explain this. So let me do this. Okay, so as I put this down, please don't go out, please don't go out. Okay, good. Okay. Yeah, I tried to make that as because it's a very there's a lot more to it. That's why I was saying go to YouTube and put in the search like Nazis occult, and you'll find like these really long videos that go into detail. But I would say there's some like the History Channel and all this sort of thing. There's some really good scholarly but kind of keep your attention videos about this because we don't know a lot of. See, this is the one thing that was kept out of the history books. Okay. Oh. King of Pentacles. I think that being aware of the corruption, I would say, and because another thing with these grifts, whether it's Christian or the occult, is that someone is going to be making some money from this. So it's kind of a two-edged sword because those of us that do readings, we do need to make a living, but the thing is to not grift. And there have been times when the connection isn't made where I'll stop and say, for whatever reason, we're not connecting. The reading's over. I'm not charging you. Okay, so... But that's the main thing is the grift, and it is the corruption, and is the one leader, and you know who that for entertainment purposes only. That this whole thing with the Trump is a Jesus meme. I think it was meant to put more money in the coffers, and boom, it backfired. So it's very important to watch for the money angle of it too. Then we have the energy around this is the Knight of Swords with very quick communication. But in this particular deck, that horse looks as though it's going to go off the cliff. So I would say beware the fast talker that's going to lead you and possibly him or herself off the cliff. Okay. Now we have underlying all of this, we have our good old friends, the nine of wands, which is the wounded warrior, which is about. I would say that if you've been stung, the thing is to, and so many people it's so easy to get taken in, especially. See, this is the thing. This goes back to my more recent video. Like, we're all like really vulnerable because we've been hit with this stuff nonstop. And, we patch ourselves and come back and do it again. And this has been our energy, but you do that so many times, this thing is eventually going to if you don't take care of yourself, this thing flips in reverse and saying, I don't know if I have it in me to even bother anymore. So this is a warning of staying vigilant and staying alert, because the whole thing that these and they are cults. I mean, they really are cults when you come down to it. And the one thing they want to do is to break down your resistance. So let's see. Then we have very emotionally charged, but since this Ace of Cups is upright, it's to, if you find your own joy and your own brand of spirituality without being told how you have to do it, and here we have this, watch out. This is like, and this is also the, the Jonesville stuff, and, the Reverend Moon and all this crap, all these people that have been around for ages, I kind of put in that although they have their own agenda, but it's the same energy. Find the joy in whatever spirituality you've adopted, and that kind of puts up a shield for being influenced. And then I would always say keep your options open, and it's pretty much the finding your own way and maybe looking to distant things. And this is what this is kind of like looking out to the future, knowing these people, they never last. It's like fascism. Well, I mean, this whole thing, it is a form of fascism, and they really don't last. So then we have here, in opposition, interesting, the Ten of Pentacles, which is the treasure chest in this deck. And this is something really interesting, because what these different things are doing, and it is, what they call the prosperity gospel, is promising you riches. If you make us rich, we're going to make you rich. And that's what all of this thing of tithing and, buying your way into heaven, because you're going to be so rewarded in the end. So they suck you in on the more esoteric level than with what people or the charlatans are doing today, which they're all over the internet and telling you how they're going to use how they're going to tell you how to use the law of attraction to gain your riches and your wealth. They gain it by telling you and suckering you in to take their workshops and their this and their that, all of this sort of thing. So it's like dangling the wealth that they could be yours, but you find you're actually giving it to them. So be it Christianity or, dare I say, for entertainment purposes only, Scientology, part of cults is promising you riches, but meanwhile emptying out whatever little you have. So kind of want to look at this while I get to the conscious and the subconscious. Okay. On the conscious level, we have the Sun in reverse. The thing is, they will hit you, but they never tell you the whole truth. They suck you in by not being really transparent. This is a really, really big warning. They're not very, very open. Then on the subconscious level, we have the fear of judging you. That this is the whole thing about the really negativity and isolating you from the people that really matter in your life. So boy, this is starting to sound a lot like occult stuff, but this, I would say that in right-wing fascisty, totalitarian, or it can be way over on the other scale, like the communism stuff of, China, old Soviet Union. They call themselves, but it smells a lot like, because they clamp down on you and use the fear. So, subconsciously, that this is called playing into your fear and isolating you. So I would say it looks like we're going to have to deal with this. Like, look at them like they're cults. And I don't know I remember like in the 70s and 80s with the deprogramming stuff started. I would say, I don't know how that works, but I would say you got to be really careful about doing that. That you don't want to get charlatans, so, or having interventions where the professionals only need apply, that kind of thing. Okay, so looking in the past, let's look at Germany of the 1930s and 40s. We have, oh yes, they do throw the smoke screens, but I would say in reverse, and looking at it from this perspective, they threw the smoke screens, but in a very negative, emotional way, sort of following this very, very fear-based and toxic. That's what cups in reverse can mean. But the people with half a brain could see through it, but a lot of them left too. They, in the 1930s, when they saw it was coming. But it's very negative, just like really fear-based. That's what they started, very fear-based, and say making you afraid. Well, it's like what they're doing now. The Bible thumpers and the QAnon people are making you fear trans people and immigrants and all this sort of thing. So back then it was those people, but it was also Jews and gypsies and this and that and the other thing. And those groups were kind of included, but yeah, so I guess things haven't changed. So do look at the similarity. It's the scapegoating and the fear-mongering and making immigrants feel as though they're taking, yeah, you want to go clean out toilets and pick oranges? Okay. But they put the fear and scapegoat people. But that really puts a shield up to that they're the problem, basically. So going on right now, here we have the Empress. What's really interesting about Russia is that, and I know that we have this, religious symbol, which could be paganism, then the very female stuff, but it can also be the Christian cross, is that Soviets really forbade religion, to the point of really, really, I mean, no one was left out. But then all of a sudden they became these big Bible thumpers when the Soviet Union was disbanded in the 90s. And so, but then they made religion like, we have now here in the States. And a lot of Jews really did flee to Israel, even during the Soviet Union and afterwards. So, yeah, you can have your religion, but you're going to have it the way we tell you to have it. And probably putting a lot of these fake values. So, again, Russia comes up. Russia seems to play a big part of it, but Russia's also doing something that they're using that to pit one religion against another. They're doing a really good job of doing the Muslims against the Jews in this war, and are enabling. They're encouraging the really wacko I've heard the rapture preppers who are going. They're going to the Christians. They're going to save Israel, and the Jews will convert, and Jesus will come down on his sleigh, and off they go, and the rest are just going to burn in hell. So I would say Russia is there. It's kind of bad. It's kind of playing. It's divide. They're really good at divide and conquer. It's like they really haven't changed that much in that philosophy since the Soviet days, but they're just doing it with like different characters in the play, so to speak. But it's I think it's a big divide, and what better way to do it is to divide people of different faiths. Okay, and that's really interesting. They had their wackos like Rasputin and all this sort of thing. Okay, so then coming up in the future, we have, as long as people get caught up in this stuff, that's a great way of holding them down and not moving forward to rebel. So this is what they're doing. So this is the future they would see. Okay, in the hopes and the fears, we have the Knight of Pentacles. So the hope is that as people become aware of this and start, and it's like not even giving up, let's say Christianity, but maybe it's just like saying bye-bye to the mega church and going back to your little hometown church, that sort of thing, or finding another religion, that sort of thing. But it kind of, it's sort of like slow and easy. And it's also, pretty much of like, not jumping in to something so quickly, because that's what these people count on. So they're, Hitler did it, Putin's doing it, the Trump folks are doing that. I don't know if he's has any brain cells left to do it, but this is pretty much how, it's kind of like move along slowly and be, just make the money that don't be, because he's a cautious guy. So if he's in reverse, he's a total mercenary, but he's not going to be taken in by this promise. Okay. So that's the hope. But he does move slowly because he is fearing the people that go into this. So what I want to do now quickly is to do a little bit of a conclusion reading on this, because I do want to keep this. Now, I was thinking I might do a part 2 on this, but I don't think I have to. Really don't think. I would say this subject will continue in other ways as things come up, but I don't see doing part 2 to this. I thought if it were going to go really long. Okay, so let's see. We got here with I need to get those 2 guys here. Well, I keep seeing these queens coming up, like women are going to be playing. See, women have been used, have been weaponized with this whole for these fake religious things. So let's see. Okay. There we go. What's going to happen? I think maybe as more people wake up to this sort of thing, and there's nothing like this very rigid religious stuff to keep people from. I mean, they used it successfully in the Middle Ages to keep people as serfs and serving their lords and masters in the castle. Let's see where are we at now? Okay. I would say this is a night with the message of he's holding the cup pretty steady, of keeping the emotion in check, because they do play upon your emotions, but saying there's real spirituality to be offered, but I'm just the messenger. I'm just the messenger here. And however you drink from this cup is up to you. So then we have here the energies. Oh, here again. The night. It's funny because in these decks, these knights are. It's only like the Knight of Wands and the Knight of Swords are going crazy with those horses. So he's the workhorse, and he's saying that my prosperity, my spirituality, and my mental health, because that's what Pentacles also are, is coming from doing the hard work, because he's on a real workhorse here, doing the hard work and not selling myself out for the quick fix kind of a thing. So interesting. These 2 upright knights, again, we have hope. I think it's like once you slow down and start thinking, because people have been really sucked in. Okay, so that in this context, Judgment in reverse is about guarding against being, because these cults are quite, they're quite good at laying on the guilt and the fear. So the thing is to deal with your old issues of fear of being judged. Then we have know that by following these dictatorial cults, you're just going to get betrayed in the end. But sometimes, I don't see this, sometimes, and this is what a lot of the Magas are going through now, with job loss and all this sort of thing, is sometimes you need to go through this to hit, I call this the hitting bottom card, and looking to see the little bit of light as the new day dawns. But it's human nature that a lot of people have to get to this point to really see the light and to know that these people do not have your best interests at heart, then we have here. Sometimes I'm taking a little spiritual break and, maybe saying that whatever these people sucked me into, I have to get rejected, and I need to take a break and not worry about what spirituality thing I believe in or following anything. And then get yourself refreshed, reach for that, and you live to fight another day. Then we have the smug merchant. So that's about them being a little bit overly confident that they're going to suck you into their world. So then we have here, I'm so glad she's upright, the Star card, which I think is it's about, I'm going to say it's centering on the Americans. That I'm starting, this just occurred to me, that on the earthly, with her leg on the earthly ground, thinking that I can't afford to be tithing my ass off or paying this, that, and the other thing in order to buy my way to heaven or sanity. That isn't realistic, but maybe I do need to seek a new form of a spirituality, that where they're not going to be picking my pocket as much. And then, when you blend these things together, the earthly practical concerns and a new spirituality where, let's say, I'm done being guilt tripped, then you kind of blend that together, and then something new comes from that. So this is that then you become the star in your own. I think it's about because there aren't any other people around. You become the star in your own life. And let's see what we have here. Let's see, what is the last card for this going to be? We have the Emperor in reverse, which that's been my card for Trump. But I would also say that this is just the nasty dictator who doesn't have any more power than you're going to give him. And the thing is that I always look at this as he is the bully without much power. And the thing is that no matter how authoritarian and threatening they sound, that sometimes it's best not to feed this beast. Even if it means you just don't answer them, you just walk away and don't come back with anything to fight them with, at this point. If it means you just keep quiet and don't give them the satisfaction then of beating you back down again, it's recognized. So I would say at the end of this, it's like you gotta recognize this and see it for what it is. But since it did come right next to this card, which I do see as the United States in a lot of ways, upright, thank God. Okay. I think that more and more people are starting to see this for what it is, especially since the mental and physical health are getting really bad. It's like, if I met up with this guy in a back alley, I mean, what do I have to fear? Really, that he's no longer scary. And when that happens, all of this other power from these fake religions go away. And I will say that with the whole QAnon thing is that what's happened is that just like the Hitler and his guys did back in the day, of kind of slipping that into the Christianity, I think that's what the QAnon people did. Because if you look at January 6th, you see that Jake, what's his face, in that, and they had a whole bunch of them at the Trump trial a couple years ago in New York. They had all these shaman lookalikes. You have that one right next to people with the crosses and the Bibles and all this sort of thing from their mega churches. And January 6th, boy, they just all blended in, and they all took whatever they could lay their hands on and beat the crap out of the Capitol Police and tore into the halls of Congress and pooped all over the place. Both. That to me, that is absolutely symbolic of those two elements getting together. Now, we have an advantage that we did not have in the 1940s, is now we have the internet. So you get to see their faces plastered all over the place. So what this is telling me, I think we're starting to wake up from this, and the fact is to not be so gullible. See this for who he is. And it's like the emperor has no clothes, and that I think the same should be applied to some of these wacko phony faith things, is that's the way you take their power away and they can't exist. So with that, I'm going to sign off for now. Bye.